Hi everyone, my name's John. Welcome back to my channel. As you might be able to tell by the waning light there, it is not the morning of July 1st, but if nothing goes horribly wrong, this should still make it up before midnight, so I'm going to count it as a success. Just keep your fingers crossed for me. I want to post my pile of possibilities for quarter 3 of Historathon. I made a video a couple of, well, maybe a week or two ago about Historathon starting up quarter 3. I guess as of today, it is officially over. Quarter 2 is over, and we're starting our third period of the year, which is 1500 AD to 1820 AD, reading everything and anything nonfiction history related written in or about 1500 to 1820 AD. So I think I have 12 things here, and what I want to do is talk about the things I'm prioritizing first, I really want to read first, or I've already promised either myself or someone else that I'm going to read, and then a few other ideas both for me and for you if you don't have any earthly idea of what you might want to spend the next 3 months with history-wise. Here are some ideas. So this is not a list of everything I plan on reading, but just some things that are on the proverbial bookish radar. First up, I finagled someone yesterday in the Historathon Discord to read this with me. I casually mentioned it, and she had a copy, I think, somewhere on hand. So if she does, we'll read this together, and if she doesn't, right, you can get one at the library. It's pretty popular. This is The Cheese and the Worms by Carlo Ginzburg, and this is how long I've had it. It has a Border sticker on the back. Borders shut down in the United States in 2011, I believe, and have not read it. I read his other book, which is the other famous book on the Banditti, around the same period, 16th century. But Carlo Ginzburg is a practitioner of microhistory right when it was becoming popular in the 60s and 70s. And this book follows a miller by the name of Domenico Scandella, who is eventually charged with heresy and executed. But it basically makes an effort to look at his world, how he understood his own ideas and the world around him in terms of the culture that was just sort of ticking. It's not the events of big people, of kings and queens and nobility. It focuses on reconstructing the mental interior life of a person who would probably otherwise go down in history completely unknown. And Scandella was caught up in the Italian Inquisition and was a victim of it. And this is Ginzburg's attempt to sort of make sense out of his religious ideas, but also what he thought about the world more broadly. So if you're interested in something short, this is it. 130 pages. And if you are interested, let me know, because you might have a couple of other people interested in joining you. So Carlo Ginzburg's The Cheese and the Worms. Let's do, if you want to finish something off in one day, just to build that readerly confidence, there's nothing like being able to polish off a book in just a few hours, right? Well, something showed up on my doorstep yesterday from Princeton University Press. I kindly tapped them on the shoulder via email and reminded them that I had requested this, but they hadn't sent it yet. And I did it just in time to make this video, because it showed up, well, as I said, yesterday. This is their new History of the Renaissance. Little tiny thing. Like I said, in one sitting, The World at First Light, A New History of the Renaissance. This is by Bernd Ruck. However, if you know Dutch, however you would pronounce that name in Dutch is the word you want to insert here, and translated by Patrick Baker. This is 1,000 readable pages with another, 200 pages of notes or something. So it will take some time, not exactly for the faint of heart, but it's beautiful. just the artwork on it. Artwork doesn't usually strike me as pretty on a book, but it's gorgeous. And I can't tell you too much about it other than, well, it's obviously making an attempt at some sort of comprehensive history of the Renaissance. And I promise I will not do this with other books, but I will just read you the inside cover here, because attempting to flip through and summarize 1,000 pages will not do anyone any good. The cultural epoch we know as the Renaissance emerged at a certain time and in a certain place. Why then and not earlier? Why there and not elsewhere? In The World at First Light, historian Bernd Ruck explores the cultural and historical preconditions that enabled the European Renaissance. He shows that the rediscovery of ancient knowledge, including the science of the medieval Arab world, played a critical role in shaping the beginnings of Western modernity. He explains that the Renaissance emerged in a part of Europe where competing states and cities formed relatively open societies. Most of the era's creative minds, from Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo to Copernicus and Galileo, came from the middle classes. The art of arguing flowered, the basso continuo of intellectual and cultural breakthroughs. So that's the first half of the inside cover, but if anyone is interested, I know there are a couple of people in Discord, but it is new, just came out, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago. So from Princeton University Press, if you have the patience and are really interested in the Renaissance, let us know. And I will find places to set this aside. Okay, so I also picked up something from my bookshelf, just sort of browsing around to see what was time era appropriate. And I found my old copy of Religion and the Rise of Capitalism by Arch Tawney. This comes out from Verso. And this is Tawney's discussion of basically a kind of Weberian idea that the economic structure of a society is closely related to its religious practices, especially in what he might have called the Christian world. The important division here being, as it was with Weber, the distinction between Catholics and Protestants. That traditional Catholic societies don't exactly have this culture of asceticism and thriftiness and hard work that Protestantism seems to have. And because of that, cultures that arise from those two religious traditions are very different. And it kind of builds on Weber and says that not only is the culture related to the religious tradition that it sort of flowers out of, but also that you can eventually, over time, especially in Protestantism, that the influence of religious ideas will basically whittle down to nothing over time. Because, to make a very complex argument vulgar and simple and stupid, you can't serve two gods. You can either serve the god of your religion or you can serve the almighty dollar. And if capitalism is your economic system, that's going to be a complicated relationship when it comes to your religious life. I have not read the book. I am making a very quick and short summary of what I understand it to be. But if you were interested in Protestantism and the spirit of the ethic of Protestantism and the spirit of capitalism, I always mess up the Weber book title, but this is Religion and the Rise of Capitalism, but two very interlocked books, and two really interesting, important books. Verso, this is from their World History series. I don't know why it made it into a series called World History, but all right, so let's see. Two more things that I want to read with someone else. These are connected, obviously. So, to prepare myself for this second book, I want to read this. And I've already mentioned this in my pile of possibilities for Q3 in 2023, the first year we did Historathon. So I'm not going to say too much about it. It's not a figure or a book that needs much introduction, as is the next book. So I'm not going to say too much about it and waste your time. This is Jeremy McCullough's biography of Thomas Cromwell. Thomas Cromwell, A Revolutionary Life. Bought this a few years ago and have never gotten around to read it. And if I tell you that we bought it or I bought it in preparation to read a work of fiction, you would probably be able to guess what I want to read, and you'd be right. This is my cat. This is strictly speaking not a work of history, but it is a work of historical fiction, and there's a little part of Historathon where you can do side quests. So you can, say, watch a movie or a documentary or read some historical fiction about the time period that we're reading about, even though it's strictly speaking not nonfiction history. And that's what I want to do with this. This is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. Been sitting on my shelf for, well, check it out. There's another border sticker. So 14 years and counting. John always has the best of intentions. They always go to shit. But there you go. So if anyone wants to use Q3 to have an excuse to read Wolf Hall, we will probably be doing this sometime in, I don't know, August or September. So let us know if you want to do that too. All right. I had a lot of things about the Reformation, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to pull, because a lot of these books are big, and I didn't want to make the list too long or too bulky. And I say that as I pull off, another 700-page book from my shelf, but it is a book I haven't had a chance to get to, but it is a well-known book and sort of the historiography of the Reformation. I don't know as much about the English Reformation, which is why I got it. It's by Eamon Duffy, and is pretty well known, the stripping of the altars, traditional religion in England from 1400 to 1580. And this talks about the relationship between lay people and religious traditions in very late medieval and Renaissance England, especially the reforms that English reformers like Henry VIII, like Edward VI, were trying to push through. And it's kind of a revisionist history. It claims that late English medieval religious practice wasn't exactly as moribund or as obsolescent as a lot of people would like to think, that it was a pretty vigorous set of traditions, but that the reforms kind of were unwelcome breaks with that tradition. So, like I said, looking forward to, if I get around to it, learning more specifically about England during the Reformation. This is also from Princeton. It is part of the set of books that I bought last year, May 2024, when I took home, I think, 35 or 36 books when they had their 75% off sale, and I just went crazy. And there you go, Princeton University Press. This is A History of Art History by Christopher S. Wood. And what am I showing you the back? Here's the cover. This is basically a presentation of how art has been looked at, analyzed, written about, and thought about ever since it has been. And it goes back to, well, at least the early Renaissance, but the focus here is, it goes back further than that, at least medieval art history. But it focuses on our time period in quarter 3. Let's see, when is the earliest? Yeah, it says the earliest date, 800 to 1400. But the vast majority of it is appropriate here. And it talks about mostly the visual arts, but is a really interesting idea because I don't read too much art history on this channel, and the history of how art has been written about, not just the actual history of the form, but the history of art history itself is interesting to me. And show a lot of zone books on this channel, which is sort of owned by Princeton University Press, I believe, and they do a lot of this kind of interdisciplinary stuff, which really interests me. So I saw this and grabbed it. The only thing I would wish for were maybe color plates instead of black and white ones, but I'll settle for it. Next, if you are wanting to get out of Europe, strictly speaking, and maybe read about another part of the world, even though Europe does butt its head in, this is Hugh Thomas's Conquest, Montezuma, Cortez, and the Fall of Old Mexico. And this is exactly what the title says it is. It's about the capture and the destruction of the Aztec Empire from, 1519 to 1521. Cortez landing in Mexico with something like 400 or 500 conquistadors, and the tragic results that happened for the Aztecs. I thought this was part of a trilogy, and I think Hugh Thomas did write a trilogy, but it was a history of Spain. I think this is a standalone book, so I might have been mistaken about that. I thought another one was called Rivers of Gold. But if you know about this, let me know. I might still have room to read it if I'm not being overly ambitious. And I think the rest of these are also from Princeton, by the way. Just 4 more, I promise. This is some literary history from the end of the 18th century. This is Dinner with Joseph Johnson, Books and Friendship in a Revolutionary Age by Daisy Hay. And this is I don't know if it's specifically a biography of Joseph Johnson, but Joseph Johnson was a British publisher, writer and social, cultural critic, and he knew pretty much everyone in the late part of the 18th century and very early part of the 19th century. Blake, Wordsworth, Coleridge, Benjamin Franklin, Joseph Priestley, the scientist. And he hosted these sort of dinners, these social literary get-togethers. And it's about basically the literary life of the people who attended and the people he knew and got to know as a very influential publisher. Dinner with Joseph Johnson by Daisy Hay. I don't know too much about this, but it is something that you could truly probably read in a sitting or two. And it's about the Enlightenment, which fits. So, also from Princeton University Press, this is The Enlightenment, History of an Idea by Vincenzo Ferrone. I read the back, and it doesn't seem like it's really offering too much of anything new. I forgot why I bought it. Mostly probably because it's just about the Enlightenment. But I don't know what a 150-page book about the Enlightenment is going to tell me that I don't already know, but I guess there's hope. The Enlightenment, History of an Idea by Vincenzo Ferrone. Here's one I'm much more likely to pick up, I think. This is Princeton University Press's War and Social Thoughts, Hobbes to the Present, by Hans Joas and Wolfgang Knobel. And this looks at social history and social sociology, I guess you could say, in the age of sociology, and it was just getting off of its feet. Say, like, well, obviously Hobbes dates you there. It's 17th century through the present, mostly just the 20th century. And apparently one of the themes with liberal sort of forward-thinking sociologists was that a war was on its way out, and they had trouble reconciling themselves with needing to think about war in the light of the fact that we were in this age where, I mean, every age thinks it's modern, right? But of maybe not needing to think about war as much because we're entering this more peaceful Irenic society, but somehow that never exactly pans out the way we want it to. So I'm not going to read you any more of the inside of a book, but it's short. It's maybe 250 pages or so, and it's about a topic, sociology, one sort of facet of sociology that is really interesting to me. Just war theory and stuff like that. So War and Social Thought, Hobbes to the Present, by Hans Joas and Wolfgang Knobel. And last but not least, Some Luther, also from Princeton University Press, also bought last year during their 75% off sale. And this is by a scholar who also wrote a biography of Luther called Prophet and Visionary, something like that. But it is by Lyndall Roper, a biography of Luther I haven't read, but this appears to be some essays, an essay collection about Luther, mostly centering around his personality, his attempt to create his own literary and artistic representation of himself with the people, with the influence of people like Krennic around him. There's a piece in here about his anti-Semitism, which is quite well known. And also, the last chapter was kind of a clincher for me because it looked really interesting. It is on Luther Kitsch. So, this is, I think there are some pictures in here of, you ever seen those socks that say, "Here I stand"? There's a Martin Luther rubber ducky. But I thought that was a cute and interesting addition to end a book like this. Living I Was Your Plague. That is part of a warning, I guess, he gave the Pope. Living I Was Your Plague, and in death I will be your death, or something like that. Martin Luther's World and Legacy by Lyndall Roper. I will hopefully have this up, like I said, before midnight. Let me know what you're thinking about reading. I hope at least one or two of these sound interesting to you. And if they do, let me know in the comments section, and I will talk to you later.